December 16th, 1973, the Denver Broncos stood on the threshold of a championship. In a valiant struggle against the defending champion Oakland Raiders, the Denver Broncos came within one touchdown of winning the Western Division Championship of the American Football Conference. It was a bitter ending for the Broncos, but even so, it could not tarnish the luster of a brilliant season. The first winning season ever in the history of the Denver Broncos. This is just about the same Denver team as the one that seemed only a shade better than mediocre in 1972. There have been few changes in personnel, but in execution and confidence, it is an entirely different team. The offense, the squad's strong point in 1972, was even more prolific in 1973. The major factor for this continued progress was quarterback Charlie Johnson. Johnson has a Ph.D. in chemical engineering, but he'll admit that it's just as difficult to earn a postgraduate degree as a quarterback as it is to earn one as a chemist. After 13 years and 3,000 passes, Johnson is finally being recognized as one of pro football's premier quarterbacks. In 1973, he led the conference in touchdown passes, and under his experienced leadership, the Broncos scored more points than any team in the AFC. Johnson's considerable skills as a passer were amplified by an able and exciting core of receivers. Tight end Riley Odoms, number 88, in only his second year in the NFL, achieved All-Pro status and led the Broncos in receptions with 43. Haven Moses, number 25, is not as hard to bring down as Odoms, but he's twice as hard to catch. Moses was the Broncos' clutch receiver, and his ability to make the big play earned him a spot on the Pro Bowl team. Moses and Odoms, together with Billy Van Dusen, Jerry Simmons, number 80, and Gene Washington, number 84, enabled the Broncos to lead the AFC in yards gained passing. Still, another facet of the Bronco offense was the versatility of the setbacks. Floyd Little, number 44, gained a total of 1,400 yards rushing and receiving. He led the team in touchdowns and enjoyed his finest season ever as a pass receiver. Rookie Otis Armstrong, number 24, saw limited action in the backfield, but it was enough to justify his selection as the team's number 1 draft pick. Most of the time, Little's running mate was number 33, tough Joe Dawkins. At 223 pounds, Dawkins is not considered a breakaway threat, yet his 75-yard touchdown against the Chiefs was the Broncos' longest running play of the year. Both Dawkins and Little took smart advantage of the crisp blocking of a rapidly improving offensive line. Guard Tommy Lyons is the smallest man on the line, but he's also its most effective trap blocker. Center Bobby Maples and guard Mike Schnittker frequently combine their talents to pry open holes in the enemy's middle. Tackle Marv Montgomery is the man who puts the power in the power sweep. When Montgomery was injured, guard Laren Jackson moved over to Montgomery's tackle slot and ably filled in as lead man on the sweep. Tackle Mike Current is the biggest member of the offensive line, but he too is quick enough to get outside and open an alley for the ball carrier. One big reason for Denver's dramatic rise to the top of the division was the aggressive play of their restructured defense. Number 36, Bill Thompson, was shifted from cornerback to safety to take advantage of his range and tackling ability. Ray May, number 56, once played for the world champion Baltimore Colts. He brought his championship spirit to Denver and began to establish a sense of unity in the defense by introducing the practice of holding hands in the huddle. Paul Smith, number 70, and Lyle Alzado, number 77, have worked together for 3 years, and many a ball carrier has felt the cruel power of their embrace. Alzado is a punishing tackler whose fierce intensity is evident on every play. Paul Smith's outstanding play at defensive tackle earned him All-Pro recognition for the second year in a row. Smith is a quiet, controlled man, and when he gets excited, it inspires the whole team. And emotion is a vital resource of the young Denver defense, which uses power and pursuit to offset inexperience. Football season begins with a promise, but the promise of a winner must be made with more than just words. In his second year as head coach, John Ralston feels that he has found the men who can fulfill the promise of victory. On opening day, the Broncos surprise the Cincinnati Bengals with a wide-open freewheeling attack. Denver scores 4 touchdowns and wins 28-10. It is an exciting beginning for the Broncos, but like so many previous seasons, Denver's blooming hopes are soon withered
These legs belong to our AFC West outstanding performer, and they carry Floyd Little, number 44, for the Denver Broncos.
This footage is from last year's outstanding year. Floyd had knee surgery last year, postseason surgery. A lot of people wondered if he would be back, but off the performance against Cincinnati, he's just as good as he ever was.
He's not a monstrous back as far as size. He's only about 196 pounds, about 5'10", but he just seems to make all the natural moves.
Floyd Little, who is not only an outstanding football player but a fine young man, was recently admitted to the University of Denver Law School, and he'll begin study following this season.
Despite threatening skies and a lackluster preseason, the fans came to Denver's Mile High Stadium to see their charged-up Broncos tangle with the Cincinnati Bengals. On Denver's first series, Charlie Johnson got things moving by giving the ball to number 44, Floyd Little. Johnson then looked the defense away, turned and hit Floyd with a screen pass, good for 18 yards. The ball was marked dead at the 1, and one play later, Little gained Denver's first touchdown of 1973. On the Broncos' next possession, Floyd got things moving again with a 16-yard sweep around left end. Nine plays later, Charlie Johnson gave to Haven Moses on a reverse, and Denver led 14-0. The Cincinnati Bengals then sustained a drive of their own, and when number 19 Essex Johnson turned the corner, it looked like 7. But Johnson had tripped off that tightrope at the 10, and the ball stopped right there. Four plays later, Cincinnati was forced to turn over the ball on downs when Boobie Clark, number 35, was derailed short of pay dirt by Dale Hackbart. Then, when the Bengals rush failed to put Johnson away, he found number 33, Joe Dawkins, for a 34-yard gain. The Broncos' Mr. Big, Floyd Little, punched the final yard out for a 21-3 halftime lead. Cincinnati spent most of the second half marching up the field, but managed only one touchdown on this 22-yard run by Essex Johnson. The Bengals came close only one more time, and the Broncos had a scare when Ken Anderson dropped a perfect pass to Chip Myers in the end zone. But Myers could not control it, and when he bounced off the fence, he was more embarrassed than hurt. After sustaining two 80-yard drives and a 72-yard drive in the first half, Floyd Little began a fourth-quarter effort to consume the clock and secure Denver's 28-10 victory over the powerful Cincinnati Bengals. Little himself contributed 3 touchdowns, 132 yards of total offense, and 1 pep talk. After the game, Little said, "This is my team. If I can't get them up, nobody can." And so Denver has a leader as well as undisputed possession of first place in the AFC West, and 13 weeks left to prove that all they needed was a leader.
In their second game, the Broncos lose to the San Francisco 49ers 36-34.
Facing the 49ers, two-time champions of the NFC West, the Denver Broncos could taste their second straight victory. Behind the key block of number 78 Marv Montgomery, Floyd Little set the tenor for the impending offensive barrage. Denver built a 13-0 lead on two Jim Turner field goals and Charlie Johnson's scoring strike to Jerry Simmons' number 80. Not wishing to let the game stray out of hand, John Brody isolated setback Jimmy Thomas on linebacker Bill Lasky and found him on a swing and up. After a Bruce Gossett field goal, Brody went for 6, but Gene Washington's diving catch was ruled incomplete. So Brody sent Thomas up the gut and the score stood at 13-10. Brody burrowed down deep into his grab bag of tricks and tossed a lateral to flanker John Eisenbarger, who found tight end Ted Quallick floating free and easy. When Vic Washington blasted over from in close, the 49er lead had ballooned to 30-13 in the third quarter. John Ralston rallied his battle-weary troops, and his positive thoughts were translated into the old flea flicker that went from Johnson to Little to Anderson to Masters. Following a Bronco touchdown and a 49er field goal, Dick Nolan's team's lead evaporated to 33-20. Then it melted away to 33-27 when number 84 Gene Washington beat number 44 Bruce Taylor to the post. With just under 7 minutes to play, Ralston told his men that Taylor could be beaten to the post again. Charlie Johnson's pump fake froze Taylor, and Haven Moses beat him for 39 yards. From the 1, Taylor wanted a piece of Floyd Little, but Floyd wanted a touchdown more. Just over 4 minutes to play, the Broncos' incredible comeback earned them a 34-33 lead. But the 49ers were a team toughened by many playoff games, and led by 38-year-old John Brody, they staggered off the ropes. Larry Schreiber's 31-yard catch and run set San Francisco up nicely, but then number 55 Pete Duranko grabbed the first part of Vic Washington's equipment he could reach, and he got away with it. With 31 seconds left, Bruce Gossett lined up a 39-yard field goal. His kick was true, and San Francisco finally outlasted the upset-minded Broncos 36-34.
They are mauled by the Chicago Bears, 33-14.
Only when the shadows in Mile High Stadium were too long to make any difference did Denver score. Once on a 1-yard plunge by Bobby Anderson, and on this 36-yard screen pass to former Purdue All-American number 24 Otis Armstrong. But
Denver falls to last place when they are beaten by the Kansas City Chiefs, 16-14. The great expectations of 1973 are submerged in the backwash of 3 consecutive losses.
Last week, the Chiefs welcomed Charlie Johnson and the explosive Denver Broncos to Kansas City. And it wasn't long before Johnson and Floyd Little had taken the lead in spectacular fashion. Trailing by 7-6 at the half, Lynn Dawson finally got the Chiefs rolling early in the third period, twice calling on one of the least used runners in the league. The big play came when Dawson faked a run while Otis Taylor sneaked downfield for the payoff pass. Taylor's touchdown had Kansas City in front 13-7 after 3 quarters, and the Chiefs seemed to have things well under control, at least until an award-winning performance by Denver's actor punter Bill Van Heusen. A call of roughing the kicker gave the Broncos a chance to spring a perfect misdirection play by Joe Dawkins. The 72-yard stunner put Denver ahead 14-13 with 10 minutes still to play. But for the remainder of the game, the Chiefs' defense avoided further serious lapses and silenced the unpredictable Bronco attack. As has happened so often throughout the league this year, the deciding points were scored from far out by a field goal kicker. In this case, Jan Stenerud, who kicked 3 field goals in 3 attempts after a 4-for-11 start for the season. Amazingly, with only 1 touchdown, the 16 points for the Chiefs tied their season's high, and their third victory enabled them to remain 1 game up on the rest of the AFC West. "16-14 over a team you've beaten 25 times in 27 tries may not sound impressive, but that's the way it's been going in this year's ultra-conservative style of pro football.
In each of these defeats, Denver's offense seemed vigorous and well-planned, but it was plagued by inconsistency, and often their best efforts were turned against them. The defense was eager and talented, but it was also easily fooled and often exploited. But in spite of this discouraging beginning, there was something about this Bronco team that made it different from the Bronco teams of the past. It wasn't obvious, but it was there. It was sporadic and unpredictable, like flashes of angry light before a thunderstorm. Call it guts, call it determination, call it a refusal to quit. It's men responding to each other and caring about their success together. It's the essence of a winning spirit. On October 14th in the Astrodome, the Broncos end their losing streak with an overwhelming victory over the Houston Oilers, 48-20.
In the AFC West, our featured performer of the week is Charlie Johnson, number 12 of the Denver Broncos.
This footage from last year, Charlie was acquired from Houston in '72 for a number 3 draft choice. He holds almost all the St. Louis Cardinal passing records.
He actually has 20,000 career passing yards, and of course, he did a lot of this with the St. Louis Football Cardinals.
4 touchdowns last week over the former teammates from Houston. He leads the AFC in passing yardage this year.
and he has an engineering degree out of New Mexico State. Charlie Johnson of the Denver Broncos.
When the Broncos played the Oilers last weekend, it was homecoming for Denver's quarterback Charlie Johnson, who not only lives in Houston during the offseason, but was once an Oiler himself.
Pat, he may hang up his hat in Houston, but when they blew the whistle in the Astrodome last Sunday, he was 100% pure Denver Bronco.
There's nothing glamorous about playing quarterback in Houston, especially when you've got a herd of wild-eyed Broncos eager to avenge a recent pair of close-fought defeats. Denver quarterback Charlie Johnson has a doctorate in engineering, and from the gun he started vectoring in on a disturbingly open Haven Moses. But behind the get-tough leadership of Pastorini, the Oilers began to execute. At the goal, number 44, Fred Willis got the nod again, and his burst made it Houston 10, Denver 7. Midway through the second quarter, the on-surging Oilers had pushed the score to 20-10. On this reverse to 00, Ken Burrow. Burrow rejoiced with a highly individualized spike. But 3 plays later, Dr. Johnson narrowed the margin with a 33-yard trajectory to Haven Moses. Minutes later, the Broncos were rampaging again, this time on a reverse to Floyd Little. Behind a couple of crisp blocks, Little battered his way to the Houston 3-yard line. From there, Johnson registered his 3rd TD pass to Haven Moses to recapture the lead from the erupting Oilers at the half. Any thought about an upset was obviously premature, however, as with the beginning of the 3rd quarter, the Broncos stampede commenced. Number 36, Billy Thompson, put 6 points on the board for the defense with his 57-yard return. And the defense rejoiced with a highly individualized Lyle Alzado spike. Despite number 75, Elbert Drungo's efforts, the route was on. And to conclude a day of 19 carries for 123 yards, Floyd Little made it 38-20. Besides giving him 4 touchdown passes for the day, Johnson's last quarter flip to Billy Van Heusen pushed the 13-year veteran quarterback over the 20,000-yard mark in career passing. Conversely, the 48-20 final score meant the extension of the Houston losing streak to 16.
The following Monday, under the harsh glare of a nationwide television audience, the Broncos meet the Western Division champions, the Oakland Raiders.
All right, now this is when you find out what kind of football team we have. Find out how badly we want to play the game.
Okay!
Early in the game, Denver capitalizes on a Raider mistake. Bill Thompson scoops up a fumble and speeds 80 yards to the goal line. The Raiders retaliate when a missed assignment in the Broncos secondary leaves Mike Ciani wide open for an 80-yard touchdown pass. But determined Broncos refused to surrender the initiative. And with 41 seconds left in the game, the score is tied 20-20. But then George Blanda kicks a 49-yard field goal to give Oakland a 23-20 lead. With only 30 seconds left to play, the Raiders seemed assured of victory. But positive thinkers have no time for thoughts of defeat. In 23 seconds, the Broncos run off 3 solid gains and move into field goal range at the Oakland 28. With 7 seconds remaining, Jim Turner's field goal attempt is good, and the Broncos escape defeat. The game ends in a tie, and the lessons learned are more important than the final grade. The Broncos had stood up under pressure, and, like a diamond, they had hardened into something they had not been before. And it suddenly becomes evident that the men who can lead the Denver Broncos to their first winning season are now in uniform. Supercharged with confidence and spirit, the Broncos destroy the New York Jets 40-28. The following week, the Broncos again demonstrate the poise to stand up under pressure as Jim Turner kicks the last-second field goal to gain a tie with the St. Louis Cardinals.
Both the St. Louis Cardinals and the Denver Broncos have come a long way toward redefining their images in the NFL this season, Tom.
Well, that's true, Pat. And last Sunday, the 2 high-scoring clubs discovered just how close they are to one another.
Both defenses were warming up with the pass in mind last Sunday, and from the start, Jim Hart continued Denver's backpedaling practice. Donnie Anderson was the receiver, and in the first quarter, Hart was hot, hitting 6 of 9, including this 4-yarder to Don Shy for the early lead. Just before the half, former Cardinal quarterback Charlie Johnson evened things up with a toss to tight end Riley Odoms. At the start of the fourth quarter, Charlie Johnson brought Denver to the St. Louis 3-yard line on this courageous catch by Haven Moses. Floyd Little busted his way in, and Denver moved into a tenuous 14-10 lead. Jim Hart pulled it all together on the next series, and after this pass to Jackie Smith, the Cardinals were perched on the Bronco goal. From there, Donnie Anderson launched himself into the Denver end zone, and the Cardinals had themselves a 17-14 come-from-behind victory. But the Bronco bust wasn't going to be that easy last Sunday, as Jim Hart found out. Billy Thompson came down with the ball, and Denver had themselves a reprieve in Cardinal territory. Once again, Johnson looked to his big tight end, and Mr. Odoms helped get his teammates to the St. Louis 3-yard line. That was as far as they could get, however, as the mean red machine ground them to a halt. It was some stand for the generally porous Cardinal defense, and with only 4 seconds on the board, a Bronco tie once again rested on the kicking toe of number 15, Jim Turner. Although the 32-year-old specialist had missed 3 field goals during the game, the 12-yarder was a cinch, and the two teams had themselves a hard-to-stomach 17-17 stalemate.
Diego Chargers are no match for the stampeding Broncos, who pour through the leaky Charger defenses for 30 points and another victory. As the season progresses into November, it becomes apparent that the Broncos are legitimate contenders for the Western title.
The Denver Broncos have tremendous team spirit. It all stems from their mutual admiration and purpose, which can easily be seen in the amount of hand-slapping, fist-knocking, and general jiving they engage in. Why, they've even started holding hands in the defensive huddle. Last Sunday, the Chargers were in Denver, bent more on confusing the Broncos than confronting them. But the chicanery backfired in the form of a little bitty fella named Calvin Jones, who might be 5'7". Floyd Little followed number 68, Laren Jackson, around end for the 13-yard score with only 28 seconds elapsed. Things were really rolling when Billy Van Heusen's run from punt formation picked up 32 yards. But what was a heyday turned to havoc when Denver place kicker Jim Turner pulled a Garo Yepremian. Coy Bacon, a 6'4", 278-pounder, was the recipient, and he lugged it 80 yards for the score. On the next series, it was more salt on the wound as Charlie Johnson fumbled and San Diego recovered. 4 plays later, a roly-poly Robert Holmes put San Diego in front 16-10. And from the looks of things, over on the Denver sideline, Coach John Ralston was working on his 6th mile. But with the help of a safety blitz, the San Diego surge was laid to rest. Right away, the Broncos started to grind out a sustained drive, mostly on the heels of Floyd Little. Charlie Johnson polished off the 62-yard march with a zinger to Gene Washington for the tie. Next, Johnson countered with a short seam splitter to Joe Dawkins, who rolled on down to the Charger 14. From there, the man whose knees may be worse than Joe Willie's threw a 6-pointer to Riley Odoms for the go-ahead score. One series later, the Broncos were back with Floyd Little punching out 10 yards of goal line grit. When Floyd finished the drive, he had 107 yards rushing and the AFC's scoring lead with 11 touchdowns. And Coach John Ralston had himself a 30-19 victory, while Ron Waller had another one of those rude welcomes as a head coach in the NFL.
The true worth of the Broncos' offense was revealed in the 10th game of the season. In the hostile confines of the Steel City, the Broncos' winning wave smashes into the rocks of the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. The Steelers are heavily favored, but they're not prepared for the raw power of the Bronco running attack, and Denver controls the ball and the game, running 72 plays to Pittsburgh's 40. Riding high on the momentum and enthusiasm of 5 straight games without a defeat, the underdog Broncos swamped the Steelers 23-13. It's a special victory, a magic moment for a group of determined men who for the first time feel the fighting joy of a winning spirit.
It was brain versus brawn last Sunday as the positive-thinking Denver Broncos attempted to think their way past the powerful Pittsburgh Steelers.
In Pittsburgh, the saying goes that the defense is made of pure gold, and with golden-shoed L.C. Greenwood leading the Steel Gang defenders, their true worth was to be severely tested by the stampeding Denver Broncos. Having never lost to Pittsburgh in 3 outings, Denver was still considered the underdog, as the Steelers had not lost at home in 13 games. If they were indeed underdogs, Denver never showed it. Tom Jackson forced the fumble, which Maurice Tyler recovered, giving Bronco signal caller Charlie Johnson a chance to show off his greasy kid stuff. Denver had to settle for 3, allowing the Steeler offense to show what they could do if given a chance to move the ball. Making the biggest part of their yardage via the arm of Terry Hanratty, the Steelers moved in for the tie at 3-all. Both clubs exchanged offensive jabs as great individual efforts couldn't produce touchdowns. The Broncos forced Pittsburgh to settle for a field goal as Tom Graham met Henry Davis short of a first down. Floyd Little rallied Denver for the tie at half, and it was even at 2 field goals apiece. Denver took the lead as Little climaxed a 10-play drive to start the half. Not to be outdone, however, Hanratty brought the Steelers back on a 42-yard shot to number 25, Ron Shanklin. A repeat of the play shows the reason for the Pittsburgh score. On a square in, Shanklin found the seam in the zone. Then behind a great brush block, found himself in the end zone. On the ensuing series, Broncos specialist Jim Turner used a lucky bounce to regain the Denver lead. Joe Dawkins then led the Mile High men goalward for an insurance tally, ripping off 25 big ones. With the momentum completely in favor of Denver, a short pass from Charlie Johnson to tight end Riley Odoms got the insurance score they needed. Trailing 23-13, Pittsburgh mounted a last-ditch effort as Hanratty tried the screen to Franco Harris. But even Franco couldn't produce the magic needed to pull this one out. Hanratty's frustration signaled the end of Pittsburgh's home win streak, while keeping AFC Western title hopes as a real positive possibility for the Denver Broncos.
The following week, the Broncos focus their attentions on the only team which stands between them and undisputed first place in the Western Division. The Kansas City Chiefs use their size and strength to control the early tempo of the game, but the second quarter finds the Broncos marching to the beat of a different tune. Charlie Johnson decides to go over instead of through the Chief defense, and his change of strategy results in a touchdown pass to Haven Moses. 80 seconds later, the Johnson to Moses lightning strikes again. Moses' touchdown gives the Broncos a decided advantage, 14-3. The Chiefs are a veteran team, and more than that, they are a team that's always a contender, playing one big game after another, and they do not easily lose their poise or give up hope. They narrowed Denver's lead to 4 points, but all their poise and experience could not get them another score against the tenacious Denver defense. In the dying seconds, Charlie Greer shuts off the Chiefs' last hope with a diving interception. And for one glorious Sunday, the Denver Broncos stand alone on the summit of the Western Division.
You know, Tom, John Ralston really deserves a pat on the back. In just 2 years, he has turned the Denver Broncos into serious contenders for the title in the AFC West.
That's right. The Broncos are really tough. It's sort of like the old song about a boy named Sue. When you start holding hands in the huddle, you better be tough.
It was ex-Colt linebacker Ray May who instituted hand-holding in the defensive huddle as a symbol of the new team togetherness in Denver. And now the Broncos are embracing all sorts of strange and wonderful thoughts. And one of the strangest of those wonderful thoughts was that the Broncos could defeat the Kansas City Chiefs in their showdown for first place in the AFC West. Denver has defeated Kansas City only twice in 27 meetings, but since John Ralston has taken over as the Broncos head coach, they regard that statistic as an artifact of ancient history. But very little has changed in Kansas City, and from the outset, the Chiefs worked to remind the Denver Broncos that history has a way of repeating itself. But quarterback Charlie Johnson and receiver Haven Moses are relatively recent additions to Team Denver, and they had no way of knowing that they were supposed to be routed by Hank Stram's strongmen. And with 2 minutes remaining in the first half, Haven Moses made a nice one-handed grab of this Charlie Johnson pass to complete an 18-yard touchdown play and give Denver the lead 7-0. A repeat of the play shows that Johnson's quick release caught Kansas City cornerback Nate Allen with his back turned, and Moses took advantage of this to come back for the ball and the touchdown. And after an interception with only 45 seconds remaining in the half, Johnson came back to Haven Moses, who stepped through the Chiefs' secondary
to complete a 40-yard play and give Denver a 14-0 advantage. Throughout the second half, the Chiefs threatened to come from behind as Mike Livingston found Otis Taylor for consistent gains. At length in the fourth period, Livingston found Taylor for a touchdown, making the score 14-10 in Denver's favor. But thereafter, the Broncos' hand-holding defense shut down the Kansas City threat to record a vital victory for the reinvigorated Denver Broncos, leaving them alone atop the AFC West for the first time ever so late in the season, with visions of Super Bowl dancing in their heads.
The hills were alive with the sound of playoff hopes, and for the Broncos, it was a first for this late into the season. But posing a threat to postseason play for Denver were the Dallas Cowboys, who would need to stay on the wild and bucking Broncos for more than 8 seconds in order to continue their playoff habit. But the Dallas running attack was all but silenced as the Broncos yielded a mere 74 yards. Though Dallas had success with the pass, Roger Staubach unfortunately paid for every bit of it. Staubach was dropped 5 times by the fired-up Denver defense, which featured hard knocks all afternoon. But unfortunately for Denver, a field goal and short pass from Charlie Johnson to Riley Odoms was the extent of their scoring punch.
In the final home game of the season against the Dallas Cowboys, the Broncos suffered their first loss in 8 games. But far from weakening their spirit, the defeat roused it to a more intense flame, and the Broncos arrived in San Diego with their hearts on fire.
Come on, I'm getting back. We got to have it back. Come it back. All right. Make it go. Make it go. Come on, make it in. Hit him.
Denver out-hit and out-fought the Chargers and won easily, 42-28. This victory set up the season-ending playoff game with the Oakland Raiders, but it also marked the fulfillment of a promise. For the first time ever, the Denver Broncos are a winning team. 7 wins, 5 losses, 2 ties. And John Ralston was named AFC Coach of the Year. There's something about winning that changes a team. It stirs ambitions that will not again be quiet. Next year's promise is not only for a winner, but for a champion.
With the Raiders beating the Chiefs, everything is set for this week's showdown between the Oakland Raiders and the Denver Broncos for the championship of the AFC West.
Pat, that's a mouthful for a team like the Broncos, who never have had a winning record before this season. But in order for that scenario to take place, the Broncos had to defeat a team last Sunday, which has a championship title of its own.
While the Chargers have been subject to a large degree of ridicule in response to their expansive offensive repertoire, last week the critics were momentarily silenced when the key to the triple option pass was finally discovered. And when you get a man to block for you like that, you treat him with nothing but respect. But the Chargers have a lot to learn about a thing called excess, and it's been their undoing all fall. Despite their 2-9-1 record coming into last Sunday's game with Denver, the Chargers have no lack of individual talent. Number 48, Ron Smith, is one of the NFL's premier return men, as seen on this 70-yard kickoff bolt. Rookie quarterback Dan Fouts had himself a 254-yard passing day and registered 2 TDs, one to sure-handed Gary Garrison. Garrison's grab made the score close at 17-14 in favor of Denver. One of the reasons for that competitiveness was the mobile hulk of rampaging number 38, Robert Holmes. The conclusion to San Diego's 28-point offensive burst was a 69-yard hookup between number 14, Dan Fouts, and number 25, Jerry the Jet Levias. In spite of their spectacular individual efforts and sleight of hand offense, the Chargers were no match for Denver's sky-high defense. And with their first winning season ever on the line, the Denverites were nothing short of downright ornery. Their dogged defense even registered 2 points of their own on this blocked Dennis Partee punt, which rolled out of the end zone. And while the defense was holding its own, Denver's rushing offense was sparked by the inimitable Floyd Little. But the man most responsible for the Broncos' conference-leading offense is quarterback Charlie Johnson, who, although frequently walking wounded, pitched for 215 yards and 2 TDs against the Chargers. And when you have a 6'4", 230-pound tight end like number 88, Riley Odoms, who can catch and run, you can bet that doesn't hurt an offense either. And for real power running, number 33, Joe Dawkins, is one Bronco who's considered unbustable. The high-riding Broncos finished off their 42-28 conquest of the Chargers with a Johnson zinger to number 25, Haven Moses, thereby confirming a showdown with the Oakland Raiders this Sunday for all the marbles in the AFC West.
2 teams remain, and the last regular season game was the only one that mattered. The Raiders had battled back and now face the final challenge to their championship plans, the Denver Broncos. They forged an early lead, then added to it.
It's a big play in this drive right here. Hand off to Davis again, fakes to go outside, cuts back to the middle of the 5, touchdown Oakland! The Raiders score again!
Throughout the year, the aggressive Raider defense allowed only 175 points, 58 less than any previous season. And this intense pressure forced the Broncos to falter. Only the strongest survive in the final quarter of a title game, and on this December day, once again, it was the silver and black who conquered. A big play by the offense and then another by the defense rendered the final verdict, 21-17.
May have just broken the hearts of all of Denver, Colorado, with a 31-yard bomb. Stabler went to Ciani, who made a late break at about the 8-yard line, flew by Calvin Jones, and then floated high in the air to make a magnificent catch of that football. Washington to the left now. Back to passes Ramsey. Pumps, runs out of the pocket, throws on the move, and it's intercepted by Skip Thomas on a deflection at the 45. Thomas running around to use up time. They driving out of bounds with 1 second to go, and the Raiders are in. The ball was deflected off Riley Odom's high stretched fingertip. There's the gun. The ball game is over. The Raiders, for the 6th time in 7 years, win the Western Division of the American Football Conference.